Following the elections in Ghana over the weekend, it now seems that Ghana's next president will be John Mahama. That's after the current vice president, Mahamudu Bawumia, ahead of the official announcement of the results, went on national TV on Sunday to announce that his own party's tallies showed he'd lost. He then said he called Mr. Mahama to concede.
I'm here because when the NPP, New Patriotic Party, was in power, they didn't do the things they should have done for us. They lied to us. They brought us free education. But you can't say that you'll send us to school for free and afterwards you won't have a job. That's why we voted against NPP leader Mahamudu Bawumia.
We are celebrating our new president because our new president is very good than the old one. The old one, they are very, very criminals. Do you understand? We used to buy fuel at like 14 cities, but right now we used to buy fuel 70, 80 Ghana. It's not good like that because we Nigerians are like this, but we don't know the reason why our petrol used to cost down.
Well, reactions to those election results, which I have to say have not yet been announced by the Electoral Commission, but the opposing side has already conceded. Well, for more on those Ghana elections, I'm joined now in the studio by the Advocacy Officer and ECOWAS Liaison Lead for the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network, Austin Aigbe, who has just returned from observing the elections in Ghana. Thank you very much indeed. And in fact, you just came back a few hours ago,
yes.
So we're very grateful to you for coming straight in.
Thank you.
What did you make of the Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia's concession even before the official announcement of that result? I mean, how remarkable was that?
For those who know about the 2015 elections in Nigeria, where Goodluck Jonathan made an important call, this call, for me, was more important than the 2015. That's the kind of picture. Because Ghana was gradually snowballing into violence, post-election violence, and the guy made a call, and the peace that just erupted was more like a magic. He said he needed to make the call because of possible violence. Because on the other side, the NDC folks, they were already doing more of what electoral policing, and it was resulting in a gradual invasion of collation point. Two collation center had been invaded, ballot paper destroyed, the BVD, like the biomodal voter registration we have, had been picked up and destroyed, and in some area computers were destroyed and burnt. And where the trajectory was headed would have been an eruption of violence between the, of course, supporters of the MPP and the NDC, and at the end of the day, there will be loss of life.
Right.
I mean, they just had 2 deaths, but if that call had not come at the time it came, it would have been worse.
Right. But in that context, how do you assess the performance of the Electoral Commission, that a candidate came out before the Electoral Commission to say that he'd lost? You have to wonder why the Electoral Commission couldn't perform that role first.
See, Charles, that's a system that works in Ghana. And I just wish that Nigeria can learn a lot from Ghana. You see, in Ghana, it is extremely difficult to manipulate result sheet. However, Ghana took this thing from Nigeria, this collation process, where you move from one point to the other. Like in Nigeria, you have, after the polling unit, you move to one ward, you move to another local government. Those process takes a lot of time. As I speak, the EC Commission chair is about going up to press. That was like 5 minutes ago. I don't know now if they make any statement. The EC it will be difficult for the EC to announce result today, because they have to go back to recollate those processes that have been destroyed. Now, as I speak, the party already did the collation by not going from one point to the other. I mean, the results came from all of the polling units, and they did the tally, the tabulation. They already saw they were winning or they were losing. So there was no need to wait again whether the EC did that. But let me again say that when the vice president went on air, he helped the commission.
Right.
Because the commission, as of today, if the commission has not announced result by today, I'm not too sure they will, what may have happened to Ghana would be, you can say thank God that it didn't happen. Maybe we would have been talking about something like Kenya in 2007, 2008 or something like that. That there will be, from Greater Ghana to Ashanti and to all of the area would have been more of this confrontation. Because ahead of the election, there was already speculation that the EC has been manipulated, that one EC member appointed just recently was a member of the NPP. And there was argument about him being nominated, and the thing, it was sustained and eventually confirmed as a member. So those issues, and going back to 2020, when the current EC chair conducted the election, Mahama did not agree. He went to court. And of course, the court says there was no evidence and all of that. So right now, the NDC, ahead of this election, said they were not going to go to court, that they will settle every matter at the polling unit. What does that mean? High signal for violence.
Right.
And before now, they also have said that they were not going to sign the peace accord, because sending the peace accord will amount to nothing.
Yeah, but they did sign it.
They later signed,
right,
based on intervention. That what would have happened if they had not signed? Maybe the opposition party, the ruling party may have taken advantage to then engage in violence.
But beyond the speculation and the fact that obviously you're doing an analysis of what could have happened, that's one of the reasons you went there. Overall, would you say that once again Ghana has shown itself to be an example of electoral democracy in Africa?
Like I told the press there, I told them Ghana's democracy is a beacon of hope for West Africa and of course on the continent. The truth of the matter is that if we follow the instrumentality of electoral process in Ghana and all of these countries in the West Africa region, without necessarily having to change the constitution to continue to perpetuate itself in power, like countries like Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, and you run an election that is efficient, it brings some level of development, enhancing the democratic architecture. Today we're talking about backsliding. Ghana is truly a model. For Nigeria, I think that we need to truly learn. We need to get back on a track.
Well, let me pick you up on that, because I was going to ask you how important are successful elections such as this one in Ghana, when you look at some of the conflicts in Africa today, and some of those conflicts have emerged because of failed elections, which have become the trigger for those conflicts.
Very frank, that's true. If you look historically, going back to just Burkina Faso and the three members of the Sahelian state, it has to do with failed election. Whether it was the Baker election of 2018 in Mali, or of course what happened in Niger, even though we know that it wasn't really elections, but it had to do with governance. And ECOWAS instrument, the protocol that deals with democracy and good governance, are literally, I won't say failed, it's not meeting the current status, wherein you are supposed to have some level of improved governance architecture. You see what Ghanaians are saying, that they are already calling Nana old president, even though he's still there, and John Mahama has not been officially announced winner, even though we know based on the NPP,
concession.
The concession. For me, the concession is an announcement, but you still need to follow the law.
Of course.
It has to be announced formally and declared formally, and maybe get a return.
But just look into, you were there in Ghana during that election. The economy was crucial, wasn't it?
Yes,
that was
it was
the big reason many Ghanaians chose the person that they've now chosen, or appear to have chosen.
Yeah. True. By 2016, when NPP came on board, the problem was economy. Electricity. Ghana had, I haven't been everywhere around Africa, but at least sufficient experience I have is, let me use Nigeria as an example, where we have electricity, whether you are in band A or band B, there's some form of discrimination from the rich and the poor. That's a separate conversation. Ghana, electricity, it can't go off. Whether you're poor or rich, you got access to electricity. And that was something that Mahama failed to do in 2016. And when Nana came, NPP candidate, he won based on those reasons. But 4 years after, he has lost a lot of credibility. Election that you won 4 years earlier with some kind of landslide has literally come to almost like a neck to neck. And somehow, I told a few folks in Ghana who I know very well that 3 months ago, I said, with where your country is going, and because I know it's difficult to manipulate the electoral process because of the strength of the political party system. I've said here elsewhere that the weakness of our democracy in Nigeria is political party system in this country.
Right.
And their strength is political party system. So they don't rely on whatever happens. So they could vote for you and vote against you and protect
their votes
their
count,
vote,
basically.
and protect
But
their vote.
do you think people were not so much enthused by the choice of John Mahama, but more because they felt the ruling party had failed and they simply wanted a change? So more of a protest vote.
The real protest vote, which amazed me, were the supporters of NPP. They didn't show up to vote. In their stronghold, Ashanti, in their stronghold in Kumasi, people just didn't show up to vote. In 2016, when Nana has gotten up to 90% of the total vote, Bawumia was getting like 77. Meanwhile, in the stronghold of NDC, John Mahama, they were getting up to 70, 80, 90%. And the feedback was that those who didn't want to vote for NDC because they are NPP and because they've been impacted by these economic challenges, and of course, you hear of the taxation, they have COVID tax, they have tax on betting, they have all manner of fundraising for government, and they see it as an oppression. And for those who are strong shareholders, as it were, of the NPP, they didn't show up. And before the election, about a year ago, where they had their candidate, one of the strong men of the party, they didn't get the ticket and he moved to become an independent. And you know what that means? It was going to take some folks away. So literally, it was a protest vote. Protest vote by not voting. The members of NPP who ought to have voted for their candidate did not show up to vote. And that was the bane. Today, the record we already know, even though EC has not announced, Kodio has announced that the turnout was about 65%. Last time was about 76%. That means that there's a threshold of about 11% that are missing. Arguably, the 11% are supposedly voters of NPP who didn't show up to vote in those strongholds. One, Ashanti. Two, Kumasi. And of course, in the greater Ghana area, where even though the NDC have a sway, but there are a lot of NPP voters who apparently didn't show up on a day of election. Right. The queues were literally few. We were afraid that the turnout was going to be below 50%, but it was good. We saw 60. Officially, we've not heard from the EC.
Right. And of course, the new Mahama administration, when it finally comes in, will have to deal with that economy. What lessons can we learn from John Mahama's previous time in power? I mean, he's a former president. He's coming back now. What sort of approach do you expect him to take? And do the indicators suggest that there'll be more hard times for Ghanaians ahead?
And I like the word you used. There will be more hard times across the globe, more hard times. And I think that the promises that John Mahama had made, I think they are really weird, because they talked about the removal of those taxes, which Ghanaians like. And he promised something that I think is a bit not, I don't know, I'm not, it talked about 24-hour economy. And the question I kept asking folks on the street in Accra is that, what do you understand by 24-hour economy? And they say, when it comes, it will do it. It will do what? What's 24-hour
economy? Does that mean people are going to be working 24 hours?
That probably might literally mean it. But it means that if you want to do that, I actually told someone, I said, what about New York? New York is a 24-hour economy. You don't even know when it is the other time of the day. You just have someone taking shift and all of that. And the guy said, but it have to be proper electricity, infrastructure, security to have that done in Ghana. And they said, yeah, of course, maybe that's what he wants to bring. But I think it's a tall order. I think that Mahama need to review. Now he has won. Review and set a timetable for himself.
Well, nevertheless, he's moved very quickly. He's unveiled this 120-day agenda to transform Ghana after the elections. It's his social contract that he's come up with the Ghanaian people. I mean, that suggests somebody who wants to hit the ground running.
That 100 days are part of his campaign promises. So he had them already. It's like President of Nigeria coming on the first day of assuming office, making a declaration that subsidy was gone. That's something like that. But what now happened after subsidy was gone is a different scenario. I'm saying, with this your agenda, you need to have a proper timeline. The expectation from Ghanaians are huge. It needs to manage the expectation. Otherwise, in 2 years, if it's unable to settle the greatest challenge, the wicked problem in Ghana, they may have to go on the street and with a protest. And I don't want to see that, because this is we've captured the essence of democracy. That, man, we praise your democracy. Your electoral system is fine. But beyond that is good governance. It's governance system that you're able to meet what your promises are. People may want to talk about Mahama meter, Atamazi, which he already has documented by himself. So, for instance, he can easily come on air and say, well, COVID tax abolished. I mean, those are easy to say. Betting tax from 5% are reduced to 2%. Clearing of goods on the port are reduced to 1%. What's the source of the additional money to meet up the other gap?
Yeah.
So if you are not telling us now, what does that mean? If you abolish COVID tax, which I don't really support anyway, if you have abolished COVID tax, what replaces COVID tax? Ahead of this election, Mahama had to go to Moscow, Russia, to raise funds. He went to relaunch his book, and people say, well, you relaunch your book in Russia. I mean, even in Ghana, people are not even reading their book. And you've taken over to that location. Again, he has some very strong connection back there where he went to school. Apparently, all of us, if you ever went to school in the US or the UK, you have certain connection with those institutions and people around. That's probably why he went there to raise some money. And the NPP had accused him that he's trying to connect part of what's happening in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger with the African Corps providing support to those countries under military regime. Right. So there was that backlash, and eventually had to shut it down. Right. And we hope that he will be able to raise more money to lead a successful economy.
Well, that's to come. I mean, the first stage of it was for him to get re-elected, and get re-elected in a transparent, clearly, clean, objective way, and that votes of the Ghanaian people counted. The Ghanaians felt this is the person we voted for, and he is now the president. What lessons can Nigeria learn? That's one of the reasons you went there to observe that election.
Yeah, we actually call it learning mission, because there were other countries who came. For me, from a perspective of Nigeria, I'm also happy that I saw the INEC chair observing there on that ECONEC, and a number of other civil society organizations. First, is that Nigeria needs to strengthen the political party system. The manner in which our political party system deal with is the quest to win election without proper formation and structure. Those who go for football, they know who to play number 1, 2, 4, or 6. And when one is not playing, they take him back and they replace them. In that system, they just move into election without even structural work. The lesson for a political party on one side is to listen to the guy who considered, the vice president and the presidential candidate of NPP, who considered, the word was, we have tallied our internal data and we have found out. So there will be no need to go to court. In Nigeria, because there is no internal source, you assume that you have won an election and then you are rushing to court. That is on one side. Then two, for the Electoral Commission. For EC, the Electoral Commission of Ghana, they were very open. They talked about many things, even though there was also accusation from the NDC. There were a lot of things that they brought to the table. And they said, follow us on this. This is a timetable. Follow here, follow this, follow that. There was no way, because there was a follow. Polling unit result went to the collation point. And what they call our Form EC8A is what they call a pink copy. The pink copy had already been scanned ahead. So whether you disrupt these processes or not, is immaterial.
It's already there.
It's already there.
Yeah.
They could then go recollect. But where you have ahead of time what's supposed to be like a pink copy that's supposed to be online, something happened to the online source, and the pink copies also were all damaged and they couldn't have access to it.
Yeah.
So it will
you lose the trust of
You lose the trust.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think for the people, they need to stand, the Nigerian people must stand and vote. Ghana, 65% of turnout. Nigeria, I don't know when we're going to get 40% with the huge population that we have. A majority of those who are not voting are those who are seamlessly comfortable with whatever is happening in Nigeria. Those who turn out to vote, they are able to sell their vote. We need more of those who you can't sell their vote. Or you can't buy their vote.
I want to thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
And certainly for that last bit, because there are some golden nuggets of wisdom in what you just said there, and I hope the Nigerians will learn something from it. Austin Aigbe is the Advocacy Officer and ECOWAS Liaison Lead for the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network. He's just returned from observing the elections in Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.